Nearly every single game that Sweet Baby Inc. has touched has turned to trash, and I don't believe they are the only problems wrong with these titles. It is also the developers. They are the root of the game and the experience, and they are the ones who are deciding to hire a studio like SBI to assist them. And now we're finding out a bombshell investigation that has revealed what has been described as a close circle of game development elites in France funneling millions in taxpayer fueled government game funding to studios they themselves operate or are closely affiliated with. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, it has become very hard to trust game developers and these studios and publishers, and when you hear Sweet Baby Inc.'s name be attached to something, it raises an instant red flag. And now we're finding out this bombshell investigation has been done and it is not looking good. So, this latest expose builds on the channel's previous reports into Wings Interactive, the indie game fund tied to Landfall Games and Sweet Baby Inc. I did cover this in another video. It will be linked down below, but Gothic Therapy, Master of the TDS, and Writing Raven are doing great things. Definitely putting a lot of pressure on Sweet Baby and Wings and a lot of these other companies. It says, though, SBI, but it dramatically widens the scope of alleged influence and self-dealing within the European gaming industry. It says the first cracks in the narrative appeared when Gothic Therapy exposed Wings Interactive as what appeared to be a front for Landfall Games, despite public claims of independence. The fund, which promoted itself as a champion of diverse developers, shared staff, office space, and funding ties with the very studio it was supposedly separate from. Gothic Therapy also highlighted connections to Sweet Baby Inc., a controversial progressive narrative consulting firm whose CEO, Kim Belair, sat on Wings' selection board. I have talked so much about Kim Belair and her Bowser fetish. She's just so weird. And Sweet Baby Inc. is a very bizarre company that studios really believed was going to change the industry, I suppose, and they definitely have, and for the worse. It says, though, the deeper Gothic Therapy dug, the more troubling the pattern became. At the heart of the issue is France's Center of National Cinema, or the CNC, a government agency that funds film, animation, and video games with millions of euros annually. Decisions about how this government game funding is distributed are heavily influenced by a syndicate, or the SNJV, an industry board composed of top game developers and executives. Now, they presented a detailed list of board members in the grants their studios received, and we have heard so much over the past couple of months specifically about government funding when it comes to video games. We know about the United States government and a propaganda game, I guess you can call it, called Cat Park. We know that with Dustborn received funding. I have this article pulled up as well from that Park Place. By the way, go and check out their VIP. Consider becoming a member. Following reports of Dustborn receiving funding from the EU, the US government had spent over $250,000 on a counter disinformation game, so lots of pieces of propaganda are being government funded. It says, though, Audrey LaPrince, who works at Wings Interactive and Game Bakers, received 10 grants, 5 while serving on the board, including for Women in Games France for her own projects. Another person, A Piece of Cake Studios, received 4 grants, 3 during the board tenure. Old Skull Games received 6 grants. David Rabinu received 2 grants. I mean, there is a wildly long list here of individuals who are board members and they received grants for their studios, and only 2 of the entire board were confirmed to have not received grants, which is just insane. And although Gothic Therapy could not find direct CNC payments to Wings Interactive, they discovered that at least one Wings funded studio, the Moon Pirates, received 90,000 euros in CNC money for their game Don't Forget Me. The studio had also previously been listed on Wings Now Erased website, so we are talking about a massive string of ideologically driven individuals and studios who are receiving government funding. It says, though, the report also revisits earlier comments from Audrey, who tied Wings' mission to Gamergate and expressed a goal of building a more socially fair and just gaming community. Gothic Therapy Therapy interprets this as a deliberate ideological slant, claiming that grants and supports are selectively offered to projects that align with specific activist frameworks, potentially at the cost of merit or player interest, which I do genuinely believe there are so many studios nowadays that do receive grants and do receive funds from other companies, whether they are being bought out because they're pushing a specific narrative or they're just receiving money for a game, and they have shareholders who ultimately are only driven and given opportunities because they are ideologically driven, because they align with the industry standards. And I do not think that that is fair. I believe people should get jobs and be paid because of their merits, based on merits, because they are the best people for the job and they are creating something that people want to play. Look at something like Bloom and Rage, right? I absolutely did not like it. I know a lot of other people did not like it. At least it was something new, though. But it is wild to me that that got funded when there could have been a million other things funded that actually provided entertainment value to people, but it was just so heavily focused on pushing narratives and pushing ideologies, which is just very unfortunate. Gothic Therapy stops short of accusing anyone of outright fraud, but they argue the conflict of interest is systemic. If board members are allowed to approve grants for their own companies or those of close collaborators, the industry becomes a self reinforcing echo chamber, locking out independent voices and favoring connected insiders. Yes, if you do not have the right opinion, you are going to be pushed out of the industry. And these are people who, over the past couple of years, have injected themselves into this industry because they saw it as a way to make money, but they are not passionate. They do not actually care. It's like with Gamergate 1, Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn, they did not care about the video game industry. They just cared about making money, and they saw a way to, and they did. But now where are they? They are gone with the wind because the grift is over, because they stopped making money, because Anita had to shut down Feminist Frequency because it wasn't working out for them. And that to me is just so sad, because I do genuinely want all sorts of people to have a voice within this industry. You should be able to make super political games if that's what you want, but you also should not go on with attacking people and ultimately, in my opinion, receiving funding from governments in order to push that propaganda. Just like I believe conservatives should be able to make games and receive funding, but there are a lot of companies out there who will not give money because of a political leaning that isn't seen as respected in this industry or isn't really taken seriously, because if you label yourself a conservative, you are instantly called an ist or a phobe, which of course is just disgusting, but it is the way that the industry works right now. So they are doing great things over at Gothic Therapy. They are definitely keeping an eye on Sweet Baby Inc. and Wings Interactive, and I'm sure I'll be talking more about this situation in the future when there are updates. But as we're finding out, this bombshell investigation has been released, and they've revealed what they describe as a closed circle of game development elites in France, funneling millions in taxpayer-fueled government game funding to studios they themselves operate or are closely affiliated with. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.